All right, we are going live and pulling up on Facebook as per the usual so that we can share the video. And if anyone is tuning in right now, let us know where you're tuning in from. And we are going live with the rock star shaman, and you're going to want to hear what she has to say because we're going to get really juicy into talking about what you can do and the kind of awakening opportunities that we have in this time. Let me just share this here. Party. All right. So, for anyone that might be tuning in for the first time, we're streaming the show live for the first time, or we have been since the beginning of the quarantine. This is actually Mentor in the Mirror podcast. My name is Cole.
My name is Ta.
We are Ta
Cole.
Cole. So, Mentor in the Mirror podcast is all about self-reflection and looking at that mentor in the mirror. What do you think? What do you believe? And starting to really frame and reference where you currently are so that we can help support you with different tools and peoples and environments and ideas to get you to where you want to go. So we're really excited today to be joined by the rock star shaman herself, Alyson Charles, and we're just going to dive in. And any precursors of what people might want to know about you before we start, throw those in, and we're just gonna.
I just took my socks off.
Yes, she's already rocking our socks off.
Sock free.
We can start there, going sock free today, getting buck wild.
Yes.
Walk off with your sock off.
The only safe socks is no socks.
That's right.
Other than that, other than being sock free, let's see, just that I'm excited to be here, and it's such an honor and really, really meaningful to be sitting and chatting with you two and everyone listening, especially at this time on the planet. And just know that I am so devoted to the work that I do and just work with the highest divine vibrations. And I'll just leave it at that.
Beautiful. I mean, none of us are the same person we were yesterday or a week ago, or, I mean, not that we ever have been, but with current conditions, we're all getting the opportunity to flex and witness some new muscles or support the development of some new muscles.
For sure. And along with the new muscles, it's actually an entirely new, for most of us, an entirely new internal navigational system. It's kind of everything, it's cells changing. It's requiring so many people right now to perhaps sit with themselves for the very first time, maybe ever, which to me is one of the most exciting aspects of this, because I know the miracles that are born from when you truly face yourself. And so it's through some of these things that I know we're going to dive into on a much deeper level throughout our talk that this whole new navigational set point is conjuring and being born. And that's why I just really want to urge people to just, of course, ride the waves that present, feel what you need to feel. I am 100% advocate always for never spiritually bypassing, diving where you need to dive. But with all of that being said, just trust in this process, because I know from many, many years experience where these kinds of voids and where these kinds of energetic portals can take us.
Mm-hmm. So much like I feel with a lot of people, how much of your current trajectory has been created by your own personal experience to illuminate some of these things?
Wow. Well, I mean, that's such an interesting way to put the question, because when my divine intervention and a spiritual awakening day came in, it was a one moment in time where the intervention and awakening simultaneously erupted and my entire life changed. So the shift in my life that was most profound came from the support of the unseen realms and my guides. However, after my egoic shell got obliterated and the veil lifted from my third eye, and I started to see the truth of that traumatic relationship and the truth of myself and all of these things, the decision that I made, that I give myself credit for, was the decision to surrender. And so it is truly such a co-creative dance between myself, and that's actually where the name rock star shaman comes from. It's because my shamanic medicine works with these macro planes, these macro energetic planes on the shamanic fields of going down into Great Mother Earth, honoring and receiving the messages, medicine, and guidance of rock earth, and then connecting straight up to star source consciousness field, great spirit, and receiving in the messages, medicine, and guidance from there. So, but yet the third place that I always work from and surrender from is the divine love, light, truth, and power that is me and lives within me. So, to answer your question, it's kind of all of it. I give myself a lot of credit because I have chosen after that surrender moment to heed the calls that come in. And in my opinion, that's the most important piece, because we get signs continuously, and the unseen realms are continuously whispering and talking to us through the wind and through the animals. And our support is everywhere from these other places. But then it's up to us to let ourselves be consciously aware, to devote to truth, and to heed the calls. And so the answer is like, I kind of just give it all credit, right? I mean, am I answering the question that you asked? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like there's a wrong question or a right question. It's the expanding on the conversations that are at hand, because a lot of people right now, I mean, let's be honest, for most people, they've been through some pretty traumatic, stressful events throughout their life.
Right.
And part of what I've been reflecting on people is your current experience. Does it have any shadows or resonance of past experiences? Not the virus itself, but the experience of not being able to go outside,
Right.
or being denied connection, or feeling alone or isolation, or blaming something outside of ourselves for taking away our money, our freedom, our connection. So what are some of the things that you've been discussing with people of they're kind of getting sucked up into this chaotic fear space as well?
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, I swear to you, like 500 downloads came in as you're talking. I was like, wait, keep track. I have to say all of this. Oh my God. Okay. So the one thing I want to touch on is that I do write a monthly energy forecast for Well and Good that lives on my website, and also Well and Good. And that sparked because of the word chaos that you just used. And in the headline, it's something they come up with the headlines after I channel the forecast, but it's like, a shaman says that you can birth your greatest miracles during this chaotic time. And you just said the word chaos. And when we are taken into, so in shamanism, these vast phases, these vast portals of life that we sometimes get thrust into that are completely filled with uncertainty or unknowns, is what we call the void. And I also just channeled a guided meditation that takes people, it's a free one that you can find on my Instagram, but it takes people into the void, because I thought, what can be of greatest service right now? Because when you're taken into the void, it truly feels like it's a completely darkened, vast abyss. You can't see anything. You're floating in this energy field that feels completely foreign. Your being has never been in this particular alchemy of experience or energy. And then that's kind of when we get put into these voided experiences in life, that is most likely when our ego and some of the human aspects start to kick in, because as a human, we tend to want to know what's next. We tend to want to know the outcomes. We tend to want to know what is happening, why, all the answers, right? All these egoic, concrete things. And yet when we're put into the void, that's when it allows our spiritual gifts to be born more. That's when it allows us to shift over into aligning with our soul purpose and our calling and all these deepest, richest spiritual aspects of life that otherwise we wouldn't be forced to dip into or to uncover if we just kept going in that humdrum, comfort level, patterning, normal lifestyle that is now completely disrupted for people. So I just want to reiterate that I am not discounting or discrediting the complete disruption and what can feel like the true chaotic energy that is presenting. I'm simply saying that I, from personal experience, not just this lifetime, but many other lifetimes, when I am put into this space, whether it was my awakening and coming out of a nearly 2 decade long, very dysfunctional, traumatic, abusive at times relationship, or whether it was universe forcing me to lose a job in television that forced me to finally get more aligned into my calling, or 2 years ago when I was instructed by universe to cease all operating systems of my career as a shaman, whether that was talks, events, all these things that I was doing that were allowing me to make a living. I was instructed over 2 years ago to stop them all. And I trusted and I ceased them all, wondering how the heck am I supposed to make a living? But I had developed enough trust in the universe that I knew I needed to go that way and to hold a new line as much as I was triggered in those 2 years. And by universe seeing you grow and walk on this unseen path, that's when all these unexpected downloads came in. And that's when the download to launch shamanic PR came in. And while I was laying low in this voided period of over 2 years, I was able to offer PR services for other healers and conscious brands and get them in the spotlight. So I'm just kind of channeling in real time now, and just I surrendered right before we got on, and I just said to Great Spirit, Great Mother Earth, and my wisdom inside, like, just whatever needs to be delivered to be of greatest service, let it be. So I'm going to kind of cap where this channeled flow is going, but this void. Hang on, because one more piece wants to come in. Sorry, just stand by. Yeah, hang on, it's coming. It's when we're swimming in these waters that the previous patterns in life that maybe we were too scared to make. There was probably, for a lot of people, for some people that have maybe lost their jobs, there was maybe a deeper part of their soul for quite a while, maybe knocking or even screaming loudly at some point. This is not what you're here to do. This is not what you're supposed to do. And so while this might be terrifying, because I know what it's like to walk into a job and find out that it is no longer, I know how scary that is. But if you can feel what you need to feel, I'm not saying cut off the anger or being scared, feel what you need to feel, but then let yourself expand into whoever you talk to, whether it's God, Great Spirit, archangels, Great Mother Earth, whoever it is that you work with, and communicate with these unseen realms and say, I'm willing to grow here. I'm willing to learn here. And maybe even have your own surrender statement. And it's, again, I love how you guys do this show based upon like mentor in the mirror, because I'm all about that with my shamanic practices too. It's like teaching them, everyone else, to unlock all the gifts that are already stored inside of them. So asking yourself, what surrender statement feels right to me? For me, it was God, Great Mother Earth, show me the way, because I was in a moment of complete despair. I had the most traumatic moment of my life. And I said, I clearly don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm not the person I thought I was. Show me the way. I was in a state of just sheer desperation. And so communicating to these fields, these guides, that you're willing to receive and the help, and it will be provided. I'm not saying it's not going to feel so stretchy and discombobulating and scary. You may have a lot of waves of that, but all of these things 100% have the capacity to up-level you, to create holding a new line for yourself in your life that is much more aligned with where your soul wanted you to go anyways. These are the times in life where the hidden treasures and gems are there. We just have to be willing to feel and do the work to uncover them.
Mm-hmm. How, ho, word up, all that shit, all of it in simultaneously together. So I love how much you give and the meditations you help provide people, just to give some sort of compass, like some sort of direction in so much. It's not that it's darkness happening, it's that it can be really hard to see. And so this is the invitation for us to go in and explore where is my beacon? What is my, first of all, what is my resonance that I'm putting out? Is that in alignment to where I want to be? Like, what radio signals, what congruency am I functioning from? Because I've had the conversation with people, like you just said, about so many out of jobs, that I remember plenty of jobs I had that I was like, I wish I didn't have to go to work. And then something would like, I had one job, I worked for T-Mobile, selling cell phones, which was certainly not in aligned to my purpose, but it was comfortable for that time. There were a lot of things going on. It was the only security I had at that moment. And someone got held at gunpoint at another store. And I said, oh man, if I ever got held at gunpoint, I'd be out of here, because I don't make enough for that kind of thing. 3 weeks later, I got held at gunpoint. I just looked up, I said, got it, like duly noted. And I put in my notice. So it's sometimes you have to be careful what you ask for if there isn't intentionality and specificity, because for a lot of people, they wanted more time with their kids. They just didn't specify. They wanted to learn a new talent, learn a language, a skill, finally learn technology so they could work from home, whatever it is. This is our opportunity to take a radical self-responsibility for now creating from where we are, because complaining about it isn't going to change it. And you're not going to find as much sympathy as you used to when there is now tens of millions of people that are in a similar position.
Totally. And the word shadow keeps coming in, because that was actually your original question, the last question. And it's bringing me back to that, because in shamanism, it's really about this system of trusting that unless we learn to face and grow compassion and unconditional love for ourselves in totality, we're not able to really ever get to a place of being in our whole divine power and an embodiment of our whole self. And so that requires not just looking at the light aspects of ourselves, the fact that you might be really thoughtful or caring or generous. It's also, because we are all made of shadow and light, it's also going into the shadow aspects, because oftentimes, and I speak from vast experience, the shadow aspects we can feel really shameful about, really embarrassed about. And so we can become geniuses at hiding ourselves from our own blind spots. That's why it's called blind spot, and hiding ourselves from our own shadow aspects. And it's the biggest miracles can happen when we learn to peek back where all those little what feel like gremlin-y, monstery aspects of ourselves, they're shoved and tucked back here. But if we can just trust to turn and look and invite with groundedness and with compassion, invite these shadow aspects forward, it's in the facing them and talking to them. I always say, like, smell them, learn them, hear them, speak to these shadow aspects, and understand they're all just coming from most likely a wounded place or a traumatized place or a place inside of you that's trying to protect you. That's a lot of times where these mechanisms get born from. So talking to these shadowy aspects, whether it's anger or this voice that's just so self-defeating that tells you you're never going to amount to anything. Like, these are just a couple examples of shadowy aspects. You call them forward, and with love, you talk to them and ask them questions like, what are you trying to protect me from? Why are you trying to express love in this way? And then you start to understand where these behaviors come from, that they are rooted in love. So you send them love. And it's through that process that then they get healthily integrated, and you become more whole, more whole, more whole every time you face a shadow aspect. And it's exactly this kind of phase, these voided phases in life, when you're thrust into the abyss, that the shadow aspects presents. A lot of times, because we're such layered beings and infinite beings, that we can cover a certain wounded shadow aspect, and we might think we've gotten to the root, and then sure enough, when you're thrust into a mega void, all of a sudden, like, the back end of that root pops up and presents, and you're like, oh my God, I thought I was done with this one, but there's still that one little thread left. And so again, it's just, I know that you might be hitting up against times where it just might feel completely anguishing, times where you're literally dropped to your knees and you're scared and you're crying. Let yourself feel that, but learn to tap into that extended version of yourself that can be the conscious observer of the human you that's feeling those human emotions and in pain, and talking to that expanded higher self, that conscious observer, and tuning in there and just developing a trust that this is a portal to your relief, that this is a portal to your growth if you so choose. The last thing I'll say is it's just about not getting stuck there. So if a victim mentality starts to come in, it's okay. Don't fault yourself if you're like, why me? And you get into a day where you just feel like a victim. Okay, be aware, but know that that victim mentality is not going to take you to holding a new line and birthing a new you. So feel it for a day if you need to. And then again, talk to the unseen realms and say, I'm aware I'm in victim mentality. I want to up level. I want to learn from this. Show me the way. And then just do this dance. For a lot of people, it's going to be a big dance for a while.
And do you recommend people doing this dance by themselves? Because, you know, a lot of the work that we do with people, when we get into shadow aspects of the shadow aspects of the self tend to be pushed to the side by not just by the individual, but by society.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where shame comes from. It's that the shadow aspects of anger, of sadness, of whatever grumpiness or whatever people tend to push into the shadow aren't allowed to come into the light. So these things are reserved and kept in the shadows aspect. A lot of the work that Cole and I do is, listen, if you need to be angry, it's welcome here. So let it out. Let's not make that part of your shadow. Let's bring that into the light and let your anger be free right here, and know that it's safe here. And and really creating an environment of people that allow your shadow stuff to come and become part of light. That, for me, that's the integration of the whole self, is bringing that, and so it no longer has to be in the shadow. So how would you recommend people bring other people in on that situation so that we can all be together? Because the fact that we have a shadow and have a light side means that something is being hidden or subdued or it's pushed to the side, and it's not being allowed. And so we have to force an integration where I believe the integration is just like, let's be seen for who we are, and allow each other to be. How would you recommend people go about doing that?
Right. No, that's such an important aspect. Thank you for, elaborating on that, because it is an interesting thing. I've definitely, since my awakening day many years ago, and devoting to the spiritual path and the shamanic calling, there's absolutely been so many times along that pathway where major spiritual fires were burning inside of me, and major shadow reveal, rites of passage. And not all of my friends were ready or equipped to see or hold space of those shadow aspects of me that were finally giving space to have a breath and have an expression. And so it is an interesting thing that, if you really want to do this work, and let's say you're quarantined with someone. I happen to be really fortunate that my boyfriend, who I live with, also does the spiritual work and is gone just as deep, if not, deeper than me. And so even in our quarantine, when I had a couple of days where it was more shadowy, I just said to him, like I'm feeling this rage coursing through my body and coursing through my being. And I know not all of it is mine. And I'm just telling you because it's not about you, but it's a lot of times just communicating to someone, I'm wanting to grow through this process. I'm wanting to learn. I'm wanting to face myself and transcend. And in communicating that and letting that person know, if in this process I'm becoming aware of some aspects of myself. Are you in a place where you feel comfortable? Like, do you invite these kinds of conversations in? Can I come to you when I'm learning something about myself, or would you rather me work with my guides and stay in my own sacred space? And if that person says, like, you know what, I'm kind of dealing with my own stuff this week, like I think it might be better if you stay in sacred space, tune into, maybe you have some other spiritual friends who are healers. And that's also the interesting thing about this time, is that I'm so glad that so many healers and practitioners, granted, you do just have to do integrity work with who really feels in alignment to do work with you, but there's the ability to work with healers remotely online. It's so prevalent right now, and the healing work is just as powerful whether you're in person or not. So thinking about, if you have a friend that you can hold space for you and that you can talk with about what is revealing to you, or, you know, going to people like you know, talk cool when I say you, or whoever healers that you might follow that offer remote sessions, because sometimes you really do need proper support and space to be held when you're doing shadow work, especially if it's your first time really going there. So I think after you do the shadow work, you learn to trust yourself, because it goes back to that whole spectrum of earthly human emotions. And the more you have practice accessing both ends of that spectrum and dipping into all the various emotions, and then learning that you can trust yourself when you're in your greatest despair, then you don't necessarily have to phone a friend, a spiritual friend, as much. But a lot of people, which is why the question was so brilliant, because a lot of people right now are doing shadow work for the first time. And so I think, yeah, tuning into what practitioners can you kind of just maybe have in your mind, like, okay, if things get kind of too crunchy or gnarly, who can I reach out to? And just kind of already getting that set in your head.
Yeah, I mean, the shadow work is an important part of life, in all realms, in the spiritual realm, in the physical realm, in the mental realm, in the realm of your heart. I think it's really important to bring stuff to the surface. Have you ever read Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert Johnson?
No, but it sounds great.
Oh man, awesome book. It's like 120 pages,
Yeah, it's
super
short.
deep, super short.
Short and deep.
And it really gets to the point in a way that most people short and deep. You're stupid.
Yeah, I caught
Right?
that.
Yeah, I caught it too.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to disrupt your flow, so I
That's not
stopped
happening
there.
on this side, pal.
But I mean, like, how does one even be short and deep? That's
Short.
what I want to know.
Exactly. It's deep
Yeah,
enough for it's deep enough
ponderous.
for the shortness.
That was the deepest question of
Exactly.
the podcast.
That's the one that's making everybody think.
Uh-huh.
Deep and short. Yeah. But Robert, it's Robert A. Johnson. It's called Owning Your Own Shadow. My friend Will Reason put me onto this book, and I've introduced it to a lot of people, and it's just, it really brings the idea of shadow into the context of understanding that it doesn't take it into the guy's a psychologist. He doesn't take it into a super psychological realm. He doesn't take it into a super woo space. It's really, really easy for people to grasp. He doesn't take it into a super Christian space, but he brings in how the Christian model works around that. Is really an awesome book. And I highly recommend it to anybody that's listening to this, that's watching this, that's interested in doing some shadow work or understanding what shadow work is. When, because people talk about this stuff all the time, and there's not a lot of depth into, like you've been going into, around what shadow is. And this book's pretty awesome. I highly recommend it. It's 120 pages. I mean, you're locked in your house anyway. Read it.
Read it today.
It's a pretty awesome book. Yeah.
The
So
other thing I'll say really quickly, and thanks for sparking this, is that I have my next round of Spirit School launching in about 2 weeks. And it's so wild just looking back. I filmed it probably a month ago, but in the 9 modules in the course, each one has a different shamanic journey. And there are a lot of shamanic journeys where I facilitate people going into shadow work. And so it's really interesting for me to see now that the videos are being edited and we're about getting ready to launch. And I've been watching them back for editing notes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just wild to see that when I filmed it, it was actually perfectly created for then what was just about to happen with the pandemic. And so know that in a couple of weeks, you guys can go to my website, AlysonCharles.com or rockstarshaman.com. And I'm going to make it a really reasonable price point, and you will have 9 different guided shamanic journeys for you to explore exactly what we've just been talking about.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we actually covered a lot. Anything else that you want to add in? Because I actually think that's a lot for people to sit with and be with.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot coming out of you, sister. That's awesome. I'm so grateful for everything that you've experienced and endured in your life. All of the dramatic and traumatic things that have happened to you that have given you the space to open up into the realm of,
for the reflective perspective,
to help you open up into the realm of understanding that you can guide people through the processes that you do. So thank you so much for spending some time with us in a time that's very tumultuous on our planet, to help people get themselves aligned with what they want to have and what they want to be in this world. So thank you so much.
Yes, aho. Thank you both so much. And from the time we had our first conversation, it was so beautiful for me to feel the space that you guys hold together as a divine couple and doing the work that you facilitate, and just the thoroughness and mindfulness and depth and integrity from which I could feel you worked from. And even though our trip, Luke and I, that we were supposed to go dip into actual physical space with you guys, got postponed, I was so happy to be here today and look forward to when we can actually unite physically in person once again.
It's going to make the hugs that much more appreciated. Yep.
So this is the Mentor in the Mirror podcast, and we like to ask people who come on with us to, we believe that the greatest mentor in the world is the mentor that looks right back at you in the mirror. That's the reflective perspective. If you could advise or invite our listeners and our viewers to go in front of that mirror and say one thing or 2 things to themselves, what would it be?
Oh man, yeah, this is everything. And I won't ramble on too much about this. I'll make it concise, but talking to you guys, so many downloads come in. This is perhaps in my mind, the most fascinating aspect about my own personal shamanic journey, because people always, for the most part, people tend to want to know, as a shaman, who was your guru? Who taught you how to be a shaman? Who told you how to be a shaman? And I have to hold my line of my truth. And that's, I did, God did. Like God, if you want to know who my guru is, it's God. No one told me how to be a shaman or taught me this. And it's was that surrendering, and it's great Mother Earth, and it's God, where I get my direct downloads from, and the internal wisdom that had always lived within me, but I've just devoted to unlocking it more and more. And so when people ask me that, I know it can be triggering to others, because again, our human minds, people tend to want to hear that you sat with a certain someone somewhere for a certain amount of time, and then that qualifies you to be a real, authentic, integrated shaman or healer. And that is the case for some people, and I'm not discrediting that, but it's just not always the case. And I just say all this to let people know it is absolutely possible to align with the healer inside of yourself, with the shaman inside of yourself, with the sage inside of yourself, whatever human word we want to put to it, because these ancient wisdoms and this divine, magnificent, infinite light and all these powers live inside of you. It's just a matter of committing to unlocking them through high vibrational people, practices, and places. So I'm wrapping that and going to the mirror. And when you get to the mirror, it's, really letting yourself look, because our soul really exudes and expresses through our eyes. So take a moment to really deeply connect. I've had some of the trippiest experiences where I'm just staring at my own eyes in the mirror. Let yourself really connect. It might be the first time you are even doing this in your whole life. Really let yourself see your soul. Dip into a deep, profound experience, just staring into your eyes, and see what presents without saying anything. That's my first recommendation, is is just through the connected glance into your own soul, what evokes, what expresses in silence from your soul communicating to you. And then let me see if one last little piece comes in. And then it's just, maybe putting your left hand on your heart and tuning into your heart space and just channeling something really kind and loving to yourself. Like, I see you. I love you so much. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for being such a courageous, wonderful human. I see you. I honor you. I love you. And I'm willing to grow with you even more now. Let's align with our greatest soul purpose. I'm ready to commit to shining even brighter. Just anything along those lines that just that communicates to your own soul that you're ready to unite with it more and grow in alignment with your soul's purpose more.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alyson, for everything that you've shared, for your presence, for your heart, for coming and spending this time with us, and for the listeners as well. And anyone listening right now, you can head to AlysonCharles.com. We'll have the link in the show notes for anyone listening on the podcast. And you know that you have people in your life that are in search of this message right now, that are being drowned out in fear and misinformation. Let's also at least bring in another narrative of connection and compassion for the self and for the people around us. So rate, review, subscribe, share it with a friend, tag a friend in the video, let them know that you see them, help get them on your life team to be supported, and so that you know where to turn. If maybe the people in your household don't have the same ability to hold that space for you, this is taking responsibility to curating and creating the internal environment until you can fully create the external environment to get congruent and to get aligned. So that starts now.
Woo!
Awesome. Thank you again so much, Alyson. We really appreciate having you on the show. And to all the listeners out there, we love you endlessly and completely.
My name is Ty.
My name is Cole.
We are Ty Cole, and this is the
Mentor in the Mirror podcast. Be free.
Yay. That's